Welcome into Floyd Street's Finest. He is former Louisville assistant Mark Lieberman. I am Jack Grossman. Floyd Street's Finest, powered by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. Coach, did you have a Merry Christmas?
I had a very good Christmas. Didn't get a corned beef or pastrami sandwich, but it was pretty good. And
I actually did.
I was going to ask you.
Not on Christmas Day. I had my Chinese food. I was traditional.
I mean, it's a staple.
Yes.
It's a staple. Yes.
I didn't make it to the movies because it was like 71 degrees in Georgia. So I went out and took a long walk instead of going to the movies. I felt like that was a fair trade-off. But I got my Chinese. I got some soup dumplings, chicken fried rice, a lamb dish. It was phenomenal.
Well, our Louisville contingent, I know our listeners are, it was Sunday. It was 72 degrees. I was in T-shirt and shorts and flip-flops, and it was beautiful. And then yesterday I woke up, and it was the Game of Thrones. Winter is coming, and brutal. Anyway.
That's how it goes.
Yeah,
but I did have some corned beef
exactly
and pastrami the day after Christmas because I had a work Hanukkah party that I've done the past couple of years.
Well, that's good.
So I was frying some Lockies, had some corned beef, some pastrami. It was a great time, but
excellent. Came to bear than that.
Yeah, the topical weather. I'm going out to the Rose Bowl on Wednesday, and naturally, it's probably the one time I'm ever going to go to the Rose Bowl in my life, and it's gonna downpour all day, Coach.
Is it really? I didn't even know that.
A place that it never rains. It's gonna be like 57 and raining all day.
For the game? It's
for the game.
Those are the conditions. Oh my goodness. Well, that's only because
my luck.
Listen, that's the universe. Because if just a few years ago, someone says that Alabama is playing Indiana in a college football playoff semi or quarterfinals, and Indiana's a big favorite. I mean,
a
that's
touchdown
where the worlds
favorite.
Are colliding.
Just even Indiana in that game playing bonkers. Alabama is enough. But yeah, no, Mother Nature did not handle it.
Right?
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say. You took the words out of my mouth.
According to the Apple Weather app right now, it's projected to rain 2.65 inches in Pasadena on Thursday. Which
God
is
bless.
Crazy.
Poor. I feel bad for you, Jackie boy.
I'm going to have a blast anyway. It's going to be great. But anyways, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Louisville basketball. Cards coming off a 10-day break later tonight. When we get this podcast out this afternoon, big West Coast swing for Louisville. First of all, before we get to that, I want to ask you this, Coach. Louisville's had this 10-day break. Yes, they've taken a couple days off for Christmas, I'd assume, but how would you expect Pat Kelsey to handle this large gap in between games, this kind of bye week, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I think the fact that they were playing on the 30th, I think that's a way to wrangle them in and not whatever the break was. And I'm not privy to how long they took or when they took it. But the fact that you have ACC play coming up in just a matter of days, I'm sure it was something where that holiday was limited. You could really get the guys focused, not worry about when they're coming back and so on. So, that's something that every coach worries about. Every director of operations, every assistant coach is freaking out this time of the year about guys coming back, guys' flights being delayed, issues with travel and so on. But I'm sure in this situation, because you're getting right into the gauntlet of ACC play in California, and having to travel and do all those type of things, it was probably something where they worked out. Maybe they even traveled right after Christmas or those type of things. So I think that kind of is beneficial for them, where you're looking at some teams that just that break is something that could obviously affect what you're doing. But in this situation, because you're getting ready for ACC play, I don't think they lacked any focus or any attention to details, and that certainly was something that I think the coaching staff definitely addressed.
I was going to ask that because I do think it helps a little bit that you're playing a team in Cal who has a gaudy record, is a quad one game. It's a little bit easier to get up for off of the Christmas break and kind of get out of that lull that if, like last year, Louisville played Eastern Kentucky out of that break, and they struggled in that game.
Exactly.
A little bit easier to get up for California in an ACC opener.
Yeah, and that was a time when they're going through the injuries. They're going through what their identity completely was because they had to change some things, obviously. And I even said, look, that's not a measuring stick for when you have an Eastern Kentucky come in, when you're expected to win. The guys are not that's from the staff standpoint, they're gauging how to handle that. But it's a completely different animal when you're playing ACC play. You're traveling to California, so you have to leave and you want to get out there early and so on. So I think whatever I'm sure that plan was put together months ago. This is what we want to do. Make sure our guys are here. Make sure we're really locking in on film. We're making sure these guys understand what we're doing to prep for a Cal team that like you said, they're 12-1. Look, they haven't had the toughest schedule, but you beat Utah, you beat UCLA. This is a team that you go neck and neck with Kansas State. So look, this is a team that has talent when you look at the players that they have. No doubt. I mean, with Pippen and with Ames, I mean, you've got guard play that is really, really strong.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that Kansas State game, a game that they lost. They were down about 25 in that game. I remember 12, 13 minutes
too,
left. They came all the way back. And really, Kansas State's not a great team, but that was a all gas, no brakes type game from both teams. One of the wilder games you'll watch. If that game goes on a couple more minutes, I think California probably wins that game. It's a very interesting. I'll let you go first before we get into it.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I caught some of that as well, and I think that was the epitome of where the clock runs out before you really have a chance. They were coming back, and it really was back and forth right there at the end. I mean, look at the score in the first half, and then how they battled back. And look, I mean, you look at their roster. I mean, you've got some talented dudes. You've got some guys that can play, and another big guy that is not going to be so dominant on the offensive end, but he's still something. He rebounds the heck out of the basketball. He's a shot block presence, and he's physical. So this is a talented roster that Cal has.
It is, and they're a team that provides a resume opportunity for Louisville here. They're 48th in the net coming into Tuesday night's game. It's a quad one game. Louisville looking for their third quad one win on the year. It's the start of a stretch where Louisville plays 3 quad one games their next 5, with the Virginia and obviously Duke games coming up as well, being some really, really big opportunities here for UofL to help out their resume. I said 12-1 record. They've only played 2 games against KenPom top 100 teams. They lost that game at Kansas State that we've been talking about, 99-96, but then also beat UCLA in what was technically a neutral site game, but a home game on the Warriors' home court out there in San Francisco. So they've proven they can beat a really tough, grinded-out team in UCLA. And as you said, this team has a lot of talent. You mentioned Day-Day Ames. You mentioned Justin Pippen. They also have Chris Bell, who in that UCLA game hit 5 out of 7 from behind the arc, hit 7 of 9 from behind the arc in the Kansas State game. That's a big thing that stands out for me. Cal has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 players that are shooting 35% or better from 3. Justin Pippen at 35.8%, Bell at 40%, John Camden at 44.3%, and Day-Day Ames 46.5% from behind the arc. Cal as a team is 13th in college basketball in 3-point shooting, hitting 39.5% of their threes, get over a third of their points from behind the 3-point line. In this game, for me, a lot of this comes down to how does Louisville defend the 3 and defend a lot of the things that they want to do themselves, get open shots, be able to get out in transition, and really use the 3 ball to their advantage.
Yeah, look, you hit it down on the head. I mean, this is a talented team, and they obviously the identity of Madsen and Mad Dog. I mean, this team competes. They play hard. I don't think from a fundamental standpoint, look, Louisville defensively, they guard the perimeter pretty well. It's just a matter of, okay, making sure that, again, containing the bounce, making sure we're not getting beat off the dribble. This is something where it's been their kryptonite when they've had some of those losses is just getting the blow-bys that we've talked about and then not being able to recover from those type of situations. But this is a team that shoots it really well. It's not a similar type of neck break speed that Louisville plays at, but still they're going to come down. They play a guard heavy offense, and so look, Louisville's been pretty good on the perimeter, and the fact is that they have to make sure that the blow-bys are contained, that in transition they're locating these guys because these guys are running to the line. You got to run them off the line. And then it just becomes where they're just Louisville's team defense and shrinking gaps and doing those type of things are fundamental. And they're really paramount to a game like this. And then, look, on the offensive side, I think if they can get out and go, and we still don't, I don't know if you are privy to more on Mikel than myself, and hopefully he's functional and able to really, because it just misses a beat when you just don't have that guy that can just advance the ball with the pass, and it's just such a threat that's coming downhill and creates so many opportunities for other guys. Even though we talked about, we're impressed with Willie and in what he's done for this team.
Yeah, I know according to the injury report that came out Monday night, Mikel Brown's listed as probable to play. Cason Pryor is going to be out for this one, so they're not going to have him. It sounds like they're
Mm-hmm.
probably going to get Mikel Brown back. Any worries about trying to it was only a couple games, so I don't really think so. You've had this long break to try to get him reacclimated within the offense. I think it'll be more just like plug and play, get him back in there and let him do his thing type of deal.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of him losing any continuity or synergy with his teammates. I mean, that's well established. The issue again is just him on the defensive end as well, because when you're talking about back issues, that's something where you're just, bending of the back is so vital for point guards anyway, and coming downhill, and then guarding, as we alluded to earlier, when you're guarding Bell, when you're guarding guys like Ames and guys like Pippen. Look, these are guys that you have to find, and then that's an issue. Just making sure that this team is locked in, and certainly for him on the defensive end, we've seen Conwell take the onus of, okay, I'm going to lock down and really bring point pressure and my pickup points and so on. And I think McNeely's really good, and Willie as well. Now it's a matter of Mikel doing the same thing and really buying in defensively, especially when you come back. Those are the type of things when you haven't played and you're just getting back to your rhythm, and then your conditioning as well. As those are always things, especially when you're doing stuff that maybe if you have a certain injury where you can still stay on the bike and still do as much conditioning as possible. With backs, those are tricky because sometimes it's just rest and recovery, to get back. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting test for Louisville here. This is a game, it really is one of those under the radar type games because California, again, isn't the name brand that a Duke will bring, obviously, in a week or so, or even a Virginia in a couple weeks. But again, 12-1 record, quad one
Mm-hmm.
game. If you're as good as Louisville wants to be this year and how we've all said they are, this is a game, and this is a 2-game stretch here on the West Coast that is always tricky flying cross country. Well, first of all, why is that a trickier thing than what the average person thinks that it is? Because I know we all just say it as a blanket statement, but it is something that we see in the wins and losses, that it's hard to travel cross country like that. And two, especially with that Duke game lying on the other side of this West Coast swing, how important is it to build momentum to it and not fall into a trap of looking ahead to that Duke game after these 2 games on the West Coast?
I think every human being is a creature of habit and understands routines, but nothing is more vital than a team or a basketball or a football team that you have your routines no matter what. You're getting up at 8 a.m. Then you're going to go for workouts. Then you're going to head to the office. Then you're going to do workouts. And then at 3 o'clock is practice. And then we're going to have film. And then we're going to go back and have our meal. Everything's thrown off when you travel. And certainly when, I've been part of teams that's traveled. And when we got to Seattle, when, in our Final Four run, it was just, we were trying to really get guys on our time clock and really get out there early to really get ourselves acclimated to all those things that come into it. Because look, human beings, no matter what, you play a game that's on the West Coast and your clock is out of whack. When I was at Southeastern Louisiana, we played Cal Baptist, and we tried to simulate that as much as possible the week going forward, where we started practicing later in the evening. So those were things that we tried to do. We would practice in the evening. We'd get guys up earlier and do those type of things where they understand when we get out there, it's not just all of a sudden something that is like a strange environment for them. So that was critical. And I think that's something that, you focus on. And look, in the world of high stakes college basketball, those are things everybody looks at. Everybody's looking at, okay, how do we mentally get our guys prepared? What are we doing from a time standpoint, changing time zones, and this is not a situation where, look, they're not going out there and going back and forth. They're going out there playing 2 games. And I think that's beneficial. And certainly, you just try and get your guys acclimated as best you can. And look, the game's at 6 p.m. there. So, 9 o'clock our time. So it's something where, if you're here, you're just practicing. There's something that we did and the teams that I've been involved with. We practice later in the evening. So our guys are just used to that.
Yeah, I will also add, like, Louisville's played 9 o'clock Eastern games at home this year
Right.
already.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've always pointed out, especially in college basketball and college football as well, is people go, oh, the late start times, all this stuff. Like, these guys are college kids, man. They're night owls by trade most of the time, especially at that age.
Yeah.
I don't think the actual tip off of the game is the issue, especially it being 9 o'clock local time, which they've done before. It's more of what you said, the traveling, jet lag, all that type stuff of just
When
being
you're
so out of
eating,
rhythm.
all those type of things. No doubt, Jack. Look, they're playing video games till 2 in the morning anyway.
Oh,
So
I've been
look,
there.
that's every, yeah, exactly. So that's not the issue. The issue is playing a conference game and playing an intense, 2.5 hours of college basketball. So you want to get your guys rhythmic as best you can. So whether it's, as you said, getting out there, it's not like you're just going out there and having jet lag and just, okay, well, we're going to just go sit on the beach and eventually I'll catch myself up in a day or two, have an adult beverage and go watch Indiana whoop Alabama's butt. No, that's not the same thing. This is where, okay, we want to make sure our guys are primed and they're elite level athletes. But here's the other thing too that's changed so much. These guys have played so much travel basketball, AAU basketball, where they're playing 3 games a day and they're going from flying out to Vegas, flying out to California, flying to the East Coast, West Coast, what have you, and playing in events. Mikel Brown going overseas, or playing in a Nike event or the Summit, and so on. All these guys have played in so many things and played multiple games. So those are things that you do as a coach as well. You guys, hey, this is not something that we're not used to. But at the same time, you are discussing it with your nutritionist. You're discussing it with your strength coach. All those type of things. What do we need to do to make sure our bodies are fresh and ready to go on a Tuesday night as we're playing our first ACC game?
You mentioned when you guys went out to Seattle in 2012 for the first and second
Mm-hmm.
rounds. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys just stayed out west, right? You went straight from Seattle to
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix for the regional.
Yep.
Well,
Sure did.
yeah.
Yeah,
And what was that purely
go
just
ahead.
because of body clock and all that stuff, not wanting to limit airline miles and all that?
That and we found a wonderful place that was on a reservation that had a casino and had a wonderful spa and hotel. And I think it was a golf course as well. So I think that might have played in a little bit to us staying over there.
You're
But
saying
at the
that
same time,
you're saying that you guys were actually allowed to do that type of stuff between the second round and the Sweet 16?
listen, I'm no comment on that one. But I'm just saying that.
Oh,
Look,
come on, we're
you,
past we're past the what's it called
yeah,
the
we were
statute of
the statute
limitations
of
on this. It's been
limitations.
13
Yeah.
years. You guys made the Final Four. You can let it out.
Certainly the coaches enjoyed themselves. And look, after we had won our Elite Eight game, the players were able to enjoy themselves a little bit as well. But look, if you can do it, if you can go out there and stay there, and look, we see that a lot of times with professional teams where they just say, we're going to stay on there because look, it's a lot. If nothing else, just getting prepped, just getting back on the plane, getting all your stuff together. If nothing else, just think of like every person having to pack all your stuff and then come back and then back and forth. It's like anything else. It's a trek. And so if, look, for you and I, it's a schlep. We don't, you don't want to have to deal with that kind of stuff. So if you can do it, and I think that's why you get into play because of how wacky it is now, the ACC, your first 2 games are against California and Stanford, which is just amazing when you think about like stuff that we just talked about. That goes into even our conversations about Alabama and Indiana. It's a wacky world. But the point is, you get to go out there and you know what, stay out there, get yourself acclimated. And certainly this is a huge watershed game for them against a good team. This is a good Cal team. I think this is a team that's capable of making some noise in the conference and to go out there and look, they're prepped and ready to go for sure. I mean, and so you go out there and the fact that you can get away and get your team focused and get a win and then have to come back with a second one, but being out there, I think that's prevalent and really important for this group to really get off to a good start tonight.
I'm still stuck on the thought of you, Richard Pitino, and Kevin Keats at a blackjack table in Phoenix.
That 1,000% happened. So yes, 1,000%. And I will say this: I love Kevin Keats, but listen, don't split tens, okay?
Oh no,
that's all I can say.
oh
Yeah,
no,
yeah. Kevin, I love you, but Richard and I looked at each other. Don't split tens, buddy. So
was there some craps going on also, some backrats, some roulette?
I think so. I think I was pretty much glued to the blackjack table. But yeah, listen, it was a great time. It was a great spot that we had. Shout out to Vinny Tatum, I'm sure, for finding it and making sure that we had a great place to lodge during our after getting to the Sweet 16.
I love it. I love it. Of course, you guys went out and did the damn thing too, made the Final Four after that. So we can talk about this type of stuff. We can have fun with it after the fact. I want to get to, before we get out of here, the other game on the West Coast swing as well. Stanford, which might be an ultimate trap game. Again, similar to Cal in terms of they have a gaudy record. They're only 2 losses on the year. 85th in nets. That's a quad 2 game. Stanford plays well in
Mm-hmm.
the ACC. That could become a quad 1 game as well. But they haven't had any, big time wins. I guess St. Louis is 39th in net. That doesn't have the cachet of power conference programs, or 39th in Ken Palm, rather. They also beat Minnesota, who's on the fringe top 100 of Ken Palm, and number 83, Colorado. But I don't think they've faced a team that has the speed or athleticism that Louisville has. And what Stanford wants to do, they force turnovers. They've on over 21% of
Mm-hmm.
their possessions. That's top 25, or actually 26 in college basketball. They're the 7th best defensive rebounding team in the sport, only allowing offensive rebounds on 23.5% of their missed shots, and also grab over 35% of their own missed shots, 67th in college basketball. The other thing I'll say, they have the 20th best free throw rate in the country, and they get almost a quarter of their points from the free throw line. I say all these things because I think these are a lot of things you can do when you're playing teams that don't have the speed or athleticism to match you. You can get to the free throw line easier to draw fouls. You can dominate the boards easier against smaller teams. You can ramp up
Mm-hmm.
pressure and force turnovers against teams that maybe can't handle you athletically. But especially in the backcourt with Louisville, they have to play well. They have to be locked in. But I think Louisville can handle a lot of the things that Stanford does well, especially handling the ball pressure and taking care of the ball.
That's exactly it. And sometimes you look at their numbers now, some of that will be negated because of how good Louisville offensive rebounds anyway, because of the shots. They understand. They take, and I say this in a way that I hope our listeners can understand. They take predictable threes because they understand they're not taking shots that the team hasn't practiced or expecting in workouts and scrimmages and so on.
Or they
So
take shots
that's why
within the offense.
no doubt, no doubt. And you see, even sometimes when they're not within the offense, the other players are expecting those. And if they see Conwell coming down and almost that look of, okay, I'm good. This guy's already under that ball screen. It's gonna go up. And those guys understand they're taking a step out and understanding those long shots and so on. That's why this team is just, their second chance opportunities are incredible. And so, no matter what Stanford can preach, it doesn't matter because you go against Louisville with that kind of athleticism where those shots are coming up and they're going to get second and third chance opportunities. And then look, their philosophy is good defensive teams don't foul. They're not putting, they're not going to just put you at the line. They're not a lazy team defensively where they're just going to bail you out and, we're fouling negates hustle. This team won't do that. This team is not going to just put you at the line and unless they're in a situation where, look, they have to. But so I don't think they're a team that fouls excessively. And I think that their offensive rebounding against a team like Stanford that is, look, that's another good team. And you mentioned it. Look, Virginia's on the horizon. Duke's on the horizon. Like this conference is not like last year's conference for sure. I mean, these teams are much improved. And both these teams, if they come away 2-0 on this West Coast trip, I think that for fans to understand, this isn't, okay, well, we just get back home. We can't wait. This is 2-0. We get back, play Virginia, play Duke. Now, these are two games that they're going to have to battle and play. But they're good enough and they should win these two games. But again, this isn't something where you're just going to show up and win. And I don't think that's the approach they take. But certainly, you mentioned it. Stanford, from a statistical standpoint, is very efficient defensively. Cal has 3 good guards, and with Lee Dort, a guy that's going to erase shots at the rim and is really physical and big and rebounds. So yeah, these are 2 games that are going to be really measuring sticks for really how this team's going to come out as far as the season goes.
Yeah, and good teams lose West Coast games all the time. I mean, we see
Oh
it
yeah.
obviously in the pros a bunch, but even on the
Jack,
college level.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Look,
Yeah.
anytime you're on the road in conference, look, last night you look at some of these games and just little like Iona, who I've watched, so I think is a pretty good team. They go to Mount St. Mary's and they lose by 7. Look, no matter what, conference games on the road are just it's a different vibe, it's a different feel. And now you're talking, as you mentioned, going to the West Coast. So that's the other factor that you have to like really look at as far as how the season is measured.
Yeah, I mean, you look at even on the Big Ten side of things last year, where there's four West Coast teams. There's a few more of these West Coast swings
Hmm.
that we get the ACC. Michigan State got swept by the LA schools last year. That was a pretty damn good
Hmm.
Michigan State team last year. Purdue, who was a top four protected seed in the NCAA tournament last year, lost to a pretty bad Oregon team and almost lost to Washington. And so I mean, like you see this happen a bunch in college basketball, and obviously on the
Oh yeah,
professional level as well. It's a tough thing to do. If Louisville's able
no
to come
doubt.
in here and take care of business and win these two games against two adequate but not great teams. I think Cal's better than Stanford, especially at this stage, and presents
Agreed.
a lot more problems, potential issues for Louisville's on the offensive end than Stanford does. But these are two games that can help build some momentum going into that Duke game, which is obviously going to be a mammoth. They get them twice, but you get them first in the Center of can you build some momentum, be 2-0 going into that, make it a crescendo up to that game to where you feel like you're hitting on all cylinders. You're feeling better about yourself after what happened, especially in that Tennessee game a couple weeks ago, which is really the last meaningful moment the public's seen Louisville in this light to this point. It's trying to build momentum and confidence and getting wins that will help you come March. Again, Cal's a quad one game. Stanford's a quad two game that could become a quad one game if they play well in
Hmm.
ACC play. So these are games that can help you on the seed line in a couple months as well.
Oh, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. And look, to come out from the West Coast, and I think when it's all said and done, look, Cal's going to knock off some teams in the ACC for sure. This is just one of those teams, and then having to go out there, that's a team that you just yeah, it's a tricky situation to come back from this road trip 2-0 as you get ready for Duke, and then it's to think again last year for people to think 18-2 is something that's just going to okay, we could just mimic that. The ACC has improved, and some of those teams that haven't shown as much, like an NC State and so on, they're still all those teams are viable. All those teams are good enough to knock off anybody this year. I really believe that. I think the ACC is going to be a lot more competitive. And as you mentioned, to come back and then get ready for Duke and be 2-0 in the conference from a West Coast trip, I mean, that's not easy. That would be really impressive for this team.
And also it is worth mentioning. Oh, I have the 2024, not 2025. My bad. Yeah, Louisville has 10 net games coming up in ACC play. To your point about how much better the ACC
Mm-hmm.
is this year compared to last year, I'm pulling up Louisville's team sheet from last year just to compare, where they went 18-2 in league. We're really damn good. But you know how they ended up as a 9 seed
Mm-hmm.
despite going 18-2 in league play? The fact that all of last season they played 11 quad one games. They were 4-7 in quad one. They're going to play more quad one games in the ACC this year than they did in ACC and non-conference play last year. Go through their quad one games a season ago. They they had one, two, three, four, five quad one games in ACC play. So you're playing twice as many quadrant one games. So that means you're playing a tougher schedule than you did a year
Yep.
ago. But if you're able to win, not saying Louisville's going to go 18-2 in league play again this year, but even if you I know it's 18 games instead of 20 this year. If you were to go 14-4 or 13-5 in league play, but win six of those 10 quad one games, you're putting yourself in a much better position to be a better seed than you were a year ago, which obviously you want to be better than a 9 seed. Louisville's expected to be much, much better than a 9 seed. But if you're able to put together a 14-4, 15-3 type run in the ACC this year,
Mm-hmm.
that's where you can be looking at, okay, you're a 2 or 3 seed come March Madness, not on that 4, 5, 6 line, which gives you a much better geographic
No
preference
doubt.
for the opening rounds. I know Chicago is by far the closest regional this year for Louisville. Try to get games up there, and obviously
Mm-hmm.
it's how do you get to Indy where you get a huge showing of Louisville fans there if you were to make the Final Four just 2 hours up the road. But this is where it all starts, though, with these couple games on the West Coast with Cal and Stanford. You need to start building that resume because Louisville did a good job in the non-conference. The Kentucky win's going to carry, especially as they seem to be figuring some things out. If Jalen Lowe can stay healthy, especially on their end, and you got a couple quad one wins, but you're going to do the meat of your resume building in conference. And like you said, the league actually gives you a chance to do a good job of that this year, unlike last season.
Yeah, no doubt. And so, those games that were just however you want to put them last year, and every game in the ACC is going to be competitive for them moving forward. And yeah, I think that Kentucky game will eventually prove to be a good win for this squad.
It already is. Yeah. I mean, that's a quad 1A win for Louisville right now. The metrics have loved Kentucky throughout all the mess for right or wrong or whatever. With taking the rivalry aspect of it, as a Louisville fan, you gotta like that because that's their best one of the year so far.
Yep, and I'm sure for fans and seeing them knock off Coach Pitino, that was a interesting.
So I was at that game. We'll talk about this before I get out of here. Yeah, Coach P was not thrilled after the game. I don't know if you saw.
Think, Jack?
Yeah,
you think? Yeah.
He was not thrilled. That was thank you to the people at ESPN Louisville for letting me do this. I've done it a few times since I've left the station. Of get the press credential, go to the press conference, get some sound, send it back, and I'm getting to the game for free. Let's be honest. I'm having fun, so I appreciate all the guys back there for letting me do that. But that was the first time I'd been in a Rick Pitino press conference, and that was, even though they obviously lost and he wasn't happy, it was the experience that you would expect. He was not in a good mood, which obviously I would have wanted him to be in a better mood, but he was still he was put on the show. He got into it back and forth with one of the St. John's reporters. It was still great theater, even though they lost. It was cool for me, someone to grow up to get to see that in person. It was cool. But
luckily you weren't in the locker room. That's what you should thank your blessings for. Okay, because I've been in the locker room after certain losses. So I'd rather be in the press room. But look, as you said, with Lowe coming back, that's a different team, and regardless, I think that team is going to get better. But look, it's just a matter now of Louisville taking care of their stuff and getting off to a great start in the ACC, and that's no better way than getting a win tonight against Cal.
Yep. And one last thing, because not a lot of people would do this, and I haven't seen this very often. Pitino does the presser, and they do the 9-10 minutes or whatever. He says, okay, I'm done. And then when I'm leaving the press room, he's there with probably 3-4 of the St. John's reporters that made the trip for them. And they're just asking additional questions out in the hallway. I'm like, that's pretty cool. That you don't see many coaches doing that, especially after a loss where your team didn't exactly look great, especially that second half. For him to do that's pretty. Not a lot of coaches do that in from what I've seen, anyways, in covering college basketball and college football as well. So that was pretty cool to see him and Kenny Clark. You don't have to do that,
no doubt.
And even though I'm not fully in the media anymore, I'm just, other than the podcast, it's basically just being a fan like everyone else. It's still, I was like, okay, that's a token of respect there. Like realizing these people are doing their jobs also, and you're not thrilled, but still taking the time to answer the questions where they can do their job to the best of their ability. That's something that stood out to me that not a lot of people do. That was pretty good.
Coach Pitino gets it. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, but we'll leave it at that. Like we've been talking about, big West Coast swing this week for Louisville against Cal tonight, and then Stanford on Friday night. We'll be back next week, breaking down the two games and also previewing the clash of titans between Louisville and Duke coming up the Upsetter next Tuesday. But until then, for Coach Lieberman, I'm Jack Grossman. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff that I should have mentioned at the start. Floyd Street's finest part of the Field 68 Podcast Network.